Welcome back to another episode of the Street Sheet Podcast. This episode is a very special episode. It's our first recurring guest. We had him on season 1, which we talked about like an hour and a half, and strictly talked about him just growing up, music that he listened to while growing up, what was around, like what his parents listened to, what his siblings listened to, and what really gave him that ear for music. We got Manolo Husky, my son Manny. Welcome back to the podcast, bro.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for bringing me back. I actually just never left. I'm actually just like posted in all of the Zooms with the other interviews.
Just waiting to get that second part in.
Yeah.
Yo, so what you been up to, man? We last talked last year,
this time last year, actually.
As COVID started, I believe. Yeah.
No, I think we got, because I found it happened in the summer, right?
Yeah, it happened in the summer. I want to say like June. I would say like
if it happened in June. Yeah.
As we're talking about it, I'm gonna double check right now because we also did a bunch of recordings when we were doing the two Husky dudes.
Oh yes.
So I want to make sure I have the right date on. So we're gonna check right now. We talked. That episode dropped June 8th.
All right. So if that's June 8th.
Yeah. So around a year.
So if that was about like a year and 2 months ago.
Yep.
Where I am now, I went into hibernation, incubation mode. So if you hit me up in June and we did the interview June, I had been releasing a song a week
every Monday
since April 20th. So since 420, I was dropping one song. So all of May and then end of April. So those last 2 weeks in April, all of May, and then the beginning of June. So that was 6-7 songs in. And then that was at the height of the energy that I had. And then I just hit this wall where the momentum just couldn't keep me going, where I was just kind of it's Christmas. I'm trying to see fam. I'm trying to see my girls fam. I don't want to be making a song Monday night while everybody's posted up just chilling. And so I got to December of 2020, and that was about 20 odd weeks. No, I think I hit around 25, 27 weeks or something. And then I was all right, let me just get to this week before Christmas, and then I'm gonna just go on a break / hiatus and just circle back with myself and just be all right, that's a lot. And so I guess for context, what I did last year, starting at the end of April, was for every Monday, I would sit down on my computer and be all right, what song ideas / what can I do right now? And then put it out by the end of the night. And that's what I did for 30 fucking weeks. And then I think there were 2 or 3, I want to say there's at least 2 weeks where I did a remix of another song. So I didn't have to rap for that. And that was kind of fun. Yeah. I did a 2C Slide remix. And then I did this Charlie XCX remix. That actually was hard as fuck. I actually really like that one. But yeah, for the most part, I really did. Let me think where I am. Where I am now versus where I was a year ago, it's way more focused. It's weird. It's focus with 100% zero lack of discipline. If that makes sense, where it's kind of yeah.
So right now, are you recording? Are you writing? Or is there a process going on? Or is it right now you're just chilling at the moment, just making beats, not thinking about the lyrics side of things?
I was chilling up until I want to say probably a few days before we chilled. I finally I don't know what this is. I don't know if other create or when you get a good idea, or I just feel my shit comes in ebbs and flows, and I think I'm just about to surfing when you catch the wave, I can feel the wave picking me up on the surfboard and shit. Because I'm starting to snowball into wanting to make music again, if that makes sense.
You start getting that motivation again.
Exactly. And there's just an energy that hits you as a creative when you kind of just go, especially when you go through a year of not seeing most of your friends and basically just being inside 6 days out of 7 days of the week. But even if you're going on walks and shit, it's not the same as going out and shit.
Yeah, you're still going back home.
Yeah. And so like I reached the point like after writing 30 different like verses, songs, like quick, like just one verse songs, and I was like, all right, what else do I fucking even talk about? And so it was almost like the perfect time to be like, all right, like I said everything that I could think of. Technically, I kind of was all over the place because it was just rushed. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it, but that was kind of like the point where it wasn't really about like how so much thinking, but it was like, all right, what are we gonna record? Boom. Obviously, some are gonna be better than others. And so what I chose to then do now is like revisit those songs and be like, what worked, what didn't. Going through all my old notes and shit because I write almost everything down. Turned a lot of it into like Excel sheets. And then I had to, and then like there's like a lot of things happening on the administrative side, but for the most part, I'm like definitely gonna like get together most of the Lucy's that I dropped last year. And I'm planning on dropping it as a small little like EP project thing to kind of like give the ones that I really like from last year a home, because it kind of felt like I would do one song, put it on like online, and then the next song will come next week, and like not really give the ones that I really did fuck with. Yeah, exactly. So I think like this like release is definitely gonna highlight some of the stronger ones that kind of just went by the wayside that I think kind of need like a second, like, all right, like I'm a rapper. Here's why. It's kind of like here's where you should start, if that makes sense, with like my like music and shit. Like I'm kind of like not curating it, but it's just like, hey, like I know I dropped a shit ton of music last year, and people like that. But then also it's like, all right, if that's overwhelming and you have zero idea where to start, here's like the select few that I'm doing, or like here's where I would start if I were someone who just discovered this shit.
I feel you.
Yeah.
So like, how many would you say that you have that you're like holding on to, that you're like, I really like these? Or did you ever record one and been like, this one is one that I'm really proud of? Or was it just like, okay, it's a Monday, I got to drop it?
Oh, the ones that I really fuck with are weirdly the ones that I was recording before I decided to do the Monday thing. Okay. So like right before I started to do those releases in April, excuse me, I had one song that I had kind of liked, but I like put out just to like see how people were fucking with it. And so I kind of didn't game the system, but what I tried to do was like, all right, it's gonna be half what I like the vibes that I like, and then half way more like opposite of what I'm used to doing, which is super aggressive, like in your face, like talking about beating people up and shit. And like weirdly enough, that second half went better off than the first half. And I was just kind of like, all right, like people fuck with that. And so it's like, and like it's like ideas like that where I would test each week, where it's kind of like the week before didn't sound like the week I just put out. So every 2 songs that I was putting out all sounded different, but like I can see and like kind of like hear where my flows are, like what I want to hear / listen to. So it's kind of like, all right, I should probably lead with that shit and just put that out as like an actual project. Yeah.
No, yeah, I feel you. Because I was just about to say that not every week sounded the same. It was just a whole collection of music that if you didn't know you were dropping it and you just gave it to somebody without like a title, without an artist, they would have thought it was from different people.
Yeah, like that was the whole point. Yeah, it was fucking fucked.
Was that the idea behind it, or was it just?
It was actually, it was like a threefold. There was like 3 ideas going behind it. It was like, all right, I'm trying to put content out there, like music, just to like not get a buzz, but just like put shit out there to just be like, hey, like I exist, like I make music, I rap, I make beats. Here's what I make, as opposed to just saying it over and over, because it's kind of like, all right, like you're gonna have to show people something.
Yeah.
And it was like, so that was the one thing. And then the second idea was kind of like, all right, like what did I want to work on? So every week you heard a song was me trying out something different, in terms of whether it was like a different subgenre of rap, where it was like more like trap sounding and like more like Roland TR-808 like drum sounds and shit like that. And then other weeks it would just be me playing the piano, me playing a bass, and then me playing the drums out on my pads, on my keyboard, or on my laptop if I didn't have my fucking MIDI. And it would just like be me just like sitting there and be like, all right, where the fuck am I going today? And it's just kind of like, all right, that's where we're going, that's where we went. And like for the most part, I guess the third idea behind it, which is kind of like finding my footing again as like an artist, because it's like I took a huge hiatus. So like I was rapping a lot in high school, and then 2016 I was gonna like be ready to drop a bunch of shit, but then I got sued for an altercation I got suspended for my first college, and that kind of just put all that shit on the back burner. And I was just kind of like, all right, I should probably like handle real life shit first and not try to be a rapper right now.
Let me get this down packed, let this get settled, and then I'll figure out what's gonna happen next.
Yeah, and so like it was always just like shit of me, or like it was always a thing of like, I don't know if this happens to you, but it was always like I was just in my head way too much about it. I was like, oh, like I can't put this out if I don't have a release plan. And then it's like, well, I can't put this out if I can't like open for somebody's show. So I should reach out to like a booking agent. I was like, yo, my nigga, like you just need to be present and just record it. Yeah. And I still do that to this day. And I still do shit like, oh, I don't like how my voice sounds, so I'm gonna record this line 30 times. And I'm just kind of like, I don't think it's that deep anymore. You know what I mean? I really do think like the one thing I think I learned in releasing 30 fucking things in 30 weeks is that like nobody really gives a shit what it sounds like as long as it's good. And that's the one thing that I think I learned the most from, not that you asked, but the one thing I took away from, and I guess that's like the fourth and final idea from it. It's just like, what am I learning as like finding my voice again in terms of like, all right, like I'm older than I was when I first started rapping in like high school. My voice should not sound the same. You know what I mean? Or like
no,
things will be different. And it's just kind of like that thing of like, all right, like you just have to get used to hearing you, and then you have to get used to hearing you again over and over on different sounding shit. And like I reached the point where I kind of just like, I don't hate the sound of my voice, but also like I'm still, or like no, I'm close to it. I think I just need to fuck it. You know what I mean? Just like do it.
Yeah, I feel you. I hate the sound of my voice. I'll tell you that straight up. I always hated the sound of my voice. Second of all, that was gonna be my next question, what you took away from it. But I'm going back to like what you said about planning stuff out and thinking too much about it. I feel you on that, because I'll give you an example. That's why these podcasts happen like so sporadically. Mm-hmm. And why I had to do it in seasons was because I think too much about it. And like this new season that just came out, I was like, oh, I'm gonna do a video, I'm gonna plan it out, have like a month to hype it up, and then didn't do any of it just because life happens. And then one Friday I was like, you know what, I'm gonna post the logo and just post the episode. Like I don't even care, I'm gonna just put it out just because it's just sitting on my laptop. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things that you have to learn just to put it out.
You just gotta share it. And it's like the one thing that really helped me every Monday when I was caught up in trying to make it sound as good as possible. I like there's some weeks when you could just tell like I kind of just said fuck it and just still put it out, knowing it wasn't as good as other Monday tracks.
Yeah.
But like you just reach a point, at least as an artist, where you're kind of just like, am I gonna keep holding myself back? And like granted, like podcasts and shit where you have to interview people, that's hard to fucking do, especially during a pandemic when like people don't have time to like meet in person. Obviously they shouldn't have been meeting in person unless you're vaccinated and shit. But even now where like people kind of adapted to like, all right, word, like you just about to be at home all day. Let me find the best way to like take time away from your schedule for this shit I'm working on. But like, it's hard to like do that without coming off as like, oh, you just want like to take away my personal time. But like, I know you personally, so I know you're not that type of person. But like, oh, like all these other people who like I have been meeting in the industry and shit like that. It's like, not that this is a tangent, but like, I guess just to end where the tangent was about to go, it's just like a lot of people want a piece of you before they offer anything, if that makes sense, which is fucked. And I guess that's kind of related to like the idea of having to chase down all these interviews where it's just kind of like, all right, those aren't happening. What can I make happen for myself? And I guess that's kind of how I was looking at music during the pandemic, because I was like, I think that was the most serious I've taken music since
high school.
Not even, probably since like 2016 when I was like making the album artwork. And then back then I was planning on doing a Monday release every Monday.
So where did the Monday release come from? Like, where did that idea come from? Because like you even said, like you even thought about doing it in 2016. Was there like an idea or somebody that you saw doing a certain thing that you were like, okay, that's Mondays, easy. What's up?
It's clearly Kanye West Good Friday. Like that's all that this is. It's just on Mondays because everybody drops on Friday. because of the RIAA certification shit.
Yeah.
But also, like, everybody doesn't like Monday. Like, you can't find someone who likes Monday unless it's someone who likes their job. And then even then, it's like, who likes their job?
That's a fact.
And it's just like, all right, like, what can I do to associate myself with something that might make people, like, something to give people to look forward to? And it's kind of like, all right, you probably had a shitty ass Monday because you had a great weekend in comparison. But also, it's just like the idea of like, I really wanted to do like a cyclical release. And I guess Monday's Manolo alliteration. I fucking love alliteration. You know me. You know I fucking love with that. I fuck with that shit a lot. But it's just like, it makes sense. And it's just like one of those things where it's kind of like, I can always go back to that if I ever get back in that ebb flow or like that workflow state. Because that was fucking nuts to do that. Just sit. It's crazy that I like did that for that long too. Like looking back on it now, it's like, how the fuck does anyone have that much like to say, let alone like wherewithal to figure out how to record and like it's shit like that, you know what I mean?
Even like what you say, that you just would sit down and be like, okay, let's see where it goes. It's not like you sat down with, okay, I'm going to talk about this today. This is the idea. This is what I want it to sound like. It was more like you sat in front of your laptop and just said, let's see where my hands take me, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to say there were days when I would like be biking to work or some shit where it's kind of like, all right, like I have this idea. Or when I finally learned how to not fucking procrastinate until Monday night to start it, I would actively like just make a batch of beats and then listen to the beats, which is what most people do, and then be like, all right, what could I write to this? But like my brain can't do that. Like I don't know how I guess that's just something you like learn when you're writing songs and shit, but like I have to be like with the music, if that makes it's weird. I have to like be.
So you write as you make the beat?
I can tell you right now, 70% of the Mondays. So for every like 6 weeks, one of those I had like either pre-written most of that verse or it was already a pre-saved beat. But about 70% of it was all done that Monday.
That's insane.
And it's weird because some of my favorite ones were actually started and finished that Monday too.
Yo, you're a fucking menace, bro. That's crazy how you were just able to do that. Yeah, that's crazy how you were just able to do that. And like you said, just all right, let's see where it goes. Oh, okay, this sounds good. Oh wow, I could talk about this. Nice, this is where we're gonna go. Like it's crazy that was the process that you went through every Monday. And then there would even be days I was like, it's 9 o'clock. I haven't seen Manny post. I would text you, yo, you know it's Monday, right? Just like you would have forgotten, and you would be like, yo, it's coming on a little bit.
No, yeah, there was one where I actually did forget that it was Monday, and I just was like, well, this is gonna be rushed to shit. But actually, again, that one was actually one of my other favorite ones too. And like, I don't think I chose that one just because you could hear that it sounds rushed, but like, goddamn, like, and then like just like this whole sitting down and like writing part, it's like when you want to be a rapper, like, or like when you just want to work on like any sort of art or craft, it's not so much that like it's hard. It's just kind of like a matter of like how much can you do and how much of it is worth saving, because everything anybody creates, I think, has a level of goodness to it. It's just a matter of like how good is it comparative to someone who's been doing this for years. And so and then like I guess that to connect to my next point is like I used to study so many fucking rappers, Joel. It was nuts. Like that's because like I wasn't fucking working at the time. So like all I would do all day is just read up on like people like Bjork and shit. Just like, all right, you don't sound like anyone else. Why? And then even like Eminem, right? Like his flow is very much his way of rapping, if that makes sense.
Where it's like it's become the Eminem flow.
Yeah, and then there's artists like Future and Young Thug where it's like there's a lot of people who sound like you, but you yourselves sounded like yourselves and kept that sound going. You know what I mean? Like
you stood out from the bunch that sounded all the same.
Mm-hmm. And that's just like what you're hearing sonically, what they're doing with their voices. I used to go the step further and then break down the verses and shit. And then that's when it hit me like, yo, like a lot of the shit on Supreme Clientele and a lot of the shit in like your average Future album are weird. Like you can like, it's very similar. Like, hear me out. But like Ghostface Killer and Future, I somehow like in my head broke down that they're basically the same kind of rapper. It's just that one grew up in New York and the other grew up in Atlanta. And when they came out, dictates what they sounded like, if that makes sense. Because when you think about a lot of like,
never thought
it's
about
like
it like that.
it's a stretch, but like when you just think about context and what they're saying, a lot of it is either drug talk, ex-drug dealer talk, something about women, or how they're better at whatever it is they do than the other person. And I guess that's essentially just what hip hop has always been.
Yeah.
And so part of that was just like learning new ways to say shit like that, but also like what ideas haven't been like said or like brought up yet. Like the idea of like something, I don't know if I talked to you about this yet, but like how do you write a love song with the idea that the person you're writing it to is someone who identifies as like they, them, like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you write a song with no pronouns and shit like that? I did it, and it's just like, it's pretty good, and I'm sitting on it, but like,
oh, I can't wait to hear that.
There's a new, like, it's just like, there's like things like, there's just new shit to talk about. Like, there are several new types of cars, if not all electric, right? Like, how do you rap about electric cars versus like, oh, I got the drop top BM or whatever the fuck,
yeah.
You know what
because
I mean?
If
like S-Class, Mercedes and shit like that. Like,
now, yeah, I feel because like when we were growing up, the big line from the rappers was, "Oh, push to start cars." Now all cars are push to start. So what are you going to talk about? So now there has to be a new flex that you have to find. Because I was like, even in the 90s, like if you listen to like all the rappers in the late 90s, early 2000s, and more late 90s.
It was like Nas and Jay-Z just kept talking about the new Mercedes and like the S-Class and shit. And like, Jay-Z said something, and then Nas was like, nah, you got to get this version. I was like, oh shit. That was so fucking, I think it is. They were talking about the S-Class with like the TVs in it and shit. Yeah. Or like the monitors in the seats or whatever the fuck. Yeah. I was like, yo, who was doing that?
Because that was like a big thing. That was a big thing back then. But like even like when people would talk about selling crack and stuff, and that was like, oh, I'm selling dope. And that was like, you listen to everybody, you're like, well, how many people are in the world that are doing crack that all of you guys are selling it? You know what I mean? It was like one of those things that was just, that's what was happening in the time. That's what they were doing. So they rapped about what they were doing. So like when you said Future and Ghostface, I could kind of see it now. Yeah.
But now you see it, right?
Yeah, like because now everybody, because now that everybody's coming out, everybody wants to sound like the Yachties. And you know what I mean? Like that's what's cool now. So that's what they want to sound like.
And it's not even just Yachty. It's just like melodic. No, yeah,
just whatever. Auto-tune. Yeah.
What do I call this era?
What they hear.
I call this the modern era of hip hop that we're living in right now is literally the exact same as the glam metal rock era, when like big hair, everybody was rapping on power or singing on power chords and shit, like Axl Rose and shit like that. Like that's essentially what dyed dreads and trap beats are now. And it's just kind of like, that's just the wave now.
Yeah. That's insane to think about it like that.
And like I was telling you before this, where it's like, I'm going to this open mic shit next week. And it's just like, it's going to be interesting to see the kind of rappers and artists, because there's probably going to be more than just rap that show up. And it's like, this will be a good indication of what's been going on since the pandemic started in terms of who's making music at home. Because I want to see that shit, because there's no way for me to like check that online, because it's like, everybody can be online, not just from New York. So it's like, I guess tangents, I keep going on wild tangents, but I guess it's working for the like discussion. But like, yo,
you good, bro.
It's been weird creating music in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Because it's like doing interviews, you have the other person and then you have access to their world.
Yeah.
But doing music on your own when no one else really around you is doing music, just because it's your like quarantine bubble, like it's fucked. And I'm so glad the internet existed for me to be able to like share my shit, because it was just like, yo, like I might lose my mind because I don't know whether or not this sounds good.
Yeah, because like at least
my ears.
Yeah, because at least when pandemic's not going on, you're in a studio or something that at least you're around other people that make music, and you can say, yo, take a listen to this real quick. You know what I mean? What do you think of this? And then you get multiple takes on it. So I can only imagine the difficulty of being at home and having that in your head. Like, does it sound good, or is it just to my ear that it sounds good? Because I feel like everything you make, like, well, not you personally, but like as a person, everything you make, you like. Like, I think all my episodes are dope, but
I hate everything I make.
Yeah, I'm like that, but I know a lot of people that they'll be like, yo, this is dope. I don't have a bad song. I'd be like, listen, guys, look at your catalog, listen to it, and they'll be like, no,
I admit my bad songs.
Oh, I admit my bad episodes. Like I know that even though I'm just starting out, I know the interviews are kind of like sloppy here and there, but it's all about the learning process. So I feel like music's the same way. It's more like, okay, this wasn't the best song, but I know how I can make it better next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where it's kind of like you gotta laugh at yourself too. Where it's like, I know every song I dropped last year wasn't good, or it wasn't good to certain people because of like what they perceive, or not even perceive, it's like what they grew up listening to versus what I was giving them. Where it's like something I might think is very good, they might just be like, oh no, like this isn't what I grew up listening to. Like there's probably people like, I don't know, because like for the most part, I only got like love. You know what I mean? Like I didn't get like any good like critical like I got people who are like, I would like share it on Reddit and like feedback forums and shit, and they would just be like random ass niggas like, yo, like this is good, but like it's mixed improperly, and I'm just kind of like, all right, how should I mix it? And then they'll be like, I don't know, and I'm just kind of like, so how do you know that it's mixed improperly? Like,
there's always that one guy. There's always that one guy. Maybe you should do this. Oh, cool. How you do that? I don't know, but you should do it.
But you should. And I'm just like, how do you know that I even need to do that? And like, I saw it online. Somebody else on the forum was like, yo, like, just remember, feedback is not advice. And that's what like the one thing that I learned a lot about how I reached making music, where it's kind of like, yo, like, you can always make that song again, just change it up. But also it's just like you see people make the same album and then people weirdly like the second version of that album.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to find the best example, but like I just because like I watched the Tyler interview on Hot 97 recently, like when he said ego is just, it's very good. Very, very good.
He dropped a lot of gems.
You can talk about that later outside of this interview.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about it.
It was the idea of like, yo, like, fuck, what was I saying? He was just saying how like, yo, where was I? Tyler, the Creator, his interview, he said, wow, I completely had a brain.
I'll talk about one thing that he said, that he was talking about nobody was fucking with him in this game right now. And I'm kind of agreeing with him. Like right now, what he's doing, and that he could switch it up, like how he did Igor. Yeah, when he did it, Igor, and then all his projects could sound differently. Like I forgot what's the name of his new project?
Call Me If You Get Lost. That's what I wanted to say.
Call Me If You Get Lost. That it just completely switched, but he shows
more rap.
I still got it. Like, okay, I could do this music, but I could still do this kind of rap. You know what I mean? I could do different genres.
I just remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's like it's crazy how I can do that much, and it's like I started listening to him in like high school, 2009. Right when he dropped his first shit, Bastard, I was like, yo, this is fucking crazy. Like, I didn't even know you could say shit like that, Joe. I was nuts.
Nah, yeah, some of his early music was wild.
Yeah.
That now you think about, now you would listen to it and be like, okay.
All right.
Play this right now out loud, see what happens.
Performance. Fuck, what was that? Oh yeah. So like in the interview when he's like, Igor is just Flower Boy Part 2, like him just doubling down on the themes of like unrequited love and like being broken up with and shit like that, and like ballads and shit, but like rap ballads. And it's just kind of like, yo, like he just gave it to y'all twice. And it's like there's rappers where it's kind of like, I don't want to say names, but it's just kind of like, all right, a lot of their albums are very much what it was like to grow up in their neighborhood and what it means to be Black in America and like Black flight. And it's like you gave us that album like several times, and it's just kind of like, that's cool. But like, yo, like the fact that you found that many different times to say essentially the same narrative, but like tweak it a bit, it's just kind of like, that's kind of impressive to me, at least. I don't know how you feel about it.
No,
as opposed to like as like a listener, but it's like, yo, like I would listen to that album again, and I still do to this day.
Oh, definitely,
because it's done well.
Yep. Well, that's like you were saying, how people make the same album over and over again. That's why I give, even though I'd be biased because he's my favorite of all time, I give Nas so much praise, because when he came out with Illmatic right after the album came out, that it got so much praise, but also it got a lot of hate because people didn't understand, because they didn't grow up in Queensbridge, right?
Yeah, so, that's a very Queens album too.
Yeah, so it's a very Queens album. So he decided, my next album is I'm gonna make sure that it's for everyone. I'm gonna make sure that it's not only for Queens. You know what I mean? And I think he did that very well with, I think it was written. It was written was more, not more about Queens based, but it was more about just growing up.
It was more accessible.
Yeah, it was, you could really take it anywhere. It could have been you were growing up in, basically it was just growing up in the hood, but it wasn't based on Queensbridge. It wasn't based on the Queens, New York
He
area.
made it for a more
anybody,
like,
you could have listened it to LA, Detroit. You could have been anywhere in the hood and been like, you know what? I kind of, it attracts to me. Yeah, I relate to this.
And that's all music really has to be. Like, it doesn't have to be as good as you think. Like, that's what hit me too when I was making all those songs. It's like, I just have to be relatable enough so that people are like, all right, like, he's clearly just starting and he's putting himself out there.
Yeah.
But also it's like, what am I saying? And that's something that I kind of like, when I took this break off, like this hiatus, where I kind of just like went back to the drawing board. I was kind of like, how do I get to that point with the listener? Like, how can I feel like I'm talking to one person individually? And I kind of figured out where you kind of just have to like literally not rip, but you just have to put a piece of yourself in everything you create, whether it's a song, whether it's just the one line that's very personal. It's just kind of like, here's me. And it's kind of like, I'm putting myself out there in like the middle of I'm willing to like volunteer to go fight the lions and shit. Because like, I at least know what it meant to have gone through shit before this. Yeah. That was a weird example, but you understand what I'm trying to say. I understand, because like, you put yourself in a very vulnerable state when you do shit like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. When you're putting yourself out there. Like, I'll give the example with, we'll keep on the topic of Igor. Some people didn't like the album. I know one of my close boys didn't like it, and it was more of, he never experienced like a breakup or heartbreak like that. You know what I mean? So he didn't really gravitate to the music. It was more like, okay, this album was cool. I don't see all the hype about it. But it was more that he couldn't relate to it. It wasn't more that the music was bad. It was just, it had no relation to him. It wasn't like he was like, oh, this album sucks, this guy can't rap. It was just, oh, it's a cool album. I don't see the hype around it. I think it's more, if you make good music, it's gonna be good music. But if you connect to people, that's what makes it even more of a special album or special song, because it relates to that person. So even if somebody's like, oh, your music's not that good, it's more of, they don't relate to it. We talked about this the other day when we were chilling about the Isaiah Rashad album that
I still got a feed.
that YouTuber, I forgot his name, did the review and
gave it it's okay.
Yeah, he gave him a 5 out of 10, and they went at him.
We can leave it at that. We can stop giving him free press.
Yeah, but
it is what it is.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
But it was more of that if you don't relate to it, you don't understand it. So of course you're not gonna gravitate towards it. You know what I mean? So we'll get into
100% what you mean. And it's just like, it's another thing that like, can you hear me?
Yeah, you good.
Okay, good. Because like, I was hearing you was getting like the robot Zoom voice.
Oh, my fault.
No, you good. And I was just making sure you could still hear me. But like, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, I say that phrase a lot. It is one of those things that like, I had to figure that out versus like someone just telling you like, oh, like if you want to write a song, write something relatable. And it's like, probably if I like Googled it, somebody probably wrote a bunch of articles about it, but also that person probably has a blog where they want you to join their newsletter. And then they also have ads and shit. And like, oh, you just want me to click. And then you want me to join your newsletter. And then you're going to release a song in like 3 months. And I'm going to be like, who are you? And that's, some people do that. And like, I don't have any problem with that. It's just like, if that's how you want to go about like doing the thing that you supposedly love, like you do it that way. I'm cool just like barely getting by with my stimmy checks and rapping and shit. Finding weird odd jobs, bro.
Right in the wave, bro. You're right in the wave right now.
You really like, there's like, it's like the idea is really just, if you don't know how to do it, but you really want to, you should probably keep trying it.
Yeah.
Because it's not so much a matter of like if it happens, it's just a matter of when. Because it's like I like to visualize it as like darts. You know, like darts when you just throw that shit at the wall. It's like, all right, if each dart is a song, if I throw 30 darts at the fucking dartboard, one of them has to hit the middle.
Yeah.
And if like none of them hit the middle, actually no, some of them hit close to the middle. But like the idea is that like you want to be as close to the middle as possible whenever you want to do something. But then it's kind of like, what is the thing in the middle? Like, what are you like trying to hit at all?
Yeah, because I was gonna say, even if it's not the middle for you, it might hit somebody and that they might be like, "This is my favorite song." This
like
is
you might fucking miss and just hit the ceiling, and that might be somebody's middle, and I'd be like, "Yo, this shit is my jam," and it's just kind of like, all right, like that's cool.
No, yeah, that's what's so crazy with music. It's just like it's all about interpretation and what people like. It's not really more about like if you're a good artist or anything. It's more of do people fuck with it? Yeah, do people fuck with it? I wanted to ask you. So we'll go into lyrics first, and then we'll go into the producing side second. So, what rappers really influenced you to begin rapping? Like, who did you hear and were like, "Yo, maybe I can do this"?
I'm trying to think. So the first rap song I remember like listening to, it was Hot 97, and I want to say it was
Flex dropping bombs.
It wasn't Flex. It was actually the morning show. I was like getting ready for like lower school, and I just remember they were still playing like Jay-Z and R. Kelly shit, and this was during like the R. Kelly trial and shit, or like the first one. And then I remember this was also around the same time as like that first Chappelle Show season with like the R. Kelly like skit about the tape.
Yeah.
And like as a kid, I kind of started to get it, but when I saw the skit, because one of my homeboys at the time, I remember he had one of the DVDs, and I watched the skit again with him. I was like, I remember this. It's him making fun of R. Kelly for pissing on a woman, allegedly. And it's like, yo, allegedly. Like, that's crazy that they were still playing a song on the radio after that. But like in hindsight, but like at the time, it was like the Jay-Z and the R. Kelly like joint album that they dropped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just remember, I forgot what song. It was like Jigga is not guilty. That one, guilty. Okay. That one. I forgot how it goes, but I just remember hearing. I was like, "This is a bop. Like I like this. I like getting ready to this, brushing my teeth and shit." And then like I kind of like would listen to all of the music that my sisters would listen to. Again, like how we talked about it before. So a lot of I want to say the rappers that definitely like got me interested in rap at first was like Jay-Z definitely, but then that crazy Lil Wayne run from like Carter 2 to whichever drop that was, to then the Carter 3 to like that Young Money run and like the No Ceilings drop right before he went to prison in what 2010? No, 2009, because the next year Kanye dropped My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
And then that changed it all. Yeah.
And I look back on that time in middle school, going into high school, just looking, and I'm just like, yo, like, of course this is a nostalgia, but like, how could you not want to be doing what those guys were doing at the time? Or it was kind of like Eminem's resurgence.
Yeah.
Drake was becoming a thing, J. Cole, Kendrick, and it's just kind of like, all right, like all these guys who were considered backpackers are now like on the radio. And I'm just kind of like, oh shit. And like Big Sean, I'm just kind of like, oh fuck. These guys that I just used to listen to their music for free, that they would just put out for mixtapes, have deals. And then it kind of clicked in my head at an early age, like, oh shit, you can get money for saying words that rhyme if you're good. And then I remember me and all my friends used to like freestyle at lunch and shit in like 8th grade, banging on the tables and shit. And then I remember we would just do that every couple days. And then one day somebody started to freestyle, and I was like, bro, that's a T.I. verse. I know what verse that's from because it was off of his, it might have been Tip versus T.I.P. or T.I. versus T.I.P. That album.
Okay.
I'm just like, bro, like I know that song because I just listened to it on the way to school. Like, what?
You're wild.
And then I started, it was like I forgot what song it was, but he was like, I'm a 5-star general, whatever. And I'm just kind of like, bro, I can finish this verse with you because I know what it is.
Yeah.
And then it was just like one of those things where I kind of like, I just killed the whole vibe.
They were like, all right, we can't freestyle with this kid.
No, because I was being a weird hardo about it, and I was being a weirdo about it. I used to do like band practice.
You were just going really hard about it because you were like, yo, that's not your verse.
But like I just remember because like I would at least say funny shit. Like that was my thing, and I still do that now. It's like I'm at least gonna get you to laugh with me, if not at me, because it's either funny to laugh with or at.
Yeah.
Cool. But like even to this day, like I try to do this thing called Legendary Cipher, and I tried. I went for a full year, and I want to say like it was fun to just pick up on how to freestyle, and it was fun to like try to fucking keep up and just bounce off ideas with people, and it was just like yo, like this is hard. Also, just rapping out loud in front of random people while they're recording you to put on their Facebook page, it's kind of like that's fucking nerve wracking. But the
No,
more
yeah,
you do it,
facts.
the more you just kind of like, no, I want to say something. And then the veterans just learn you just have to rap over somebody else, and eventually one of you is going to stop. So I kind of just like zoned in on that. I'm just kind of like, all right, I like this competitive nature. But then towards the end, when it was getting brick as shit outside, because it starts, I want to say in the spring and goes into like the winter.
Oh
And I
wow.
went for about like a few weeks. I want to say I went for a few months, and I think I went, excuse me, I'm gonna say I went like 2 years in a row. And then I just remember like the first few weeks I came back, and then the last few weeks of the last season, I just remember like standing there, and I'm just kind of like, yo, like, why does this sound so familiar? Because we would just rap on like instrumentals and shit. So it'd be like Mob Deep, Alchemist shit. It would be a good time, 4 hours. But then I just hit a point where I'm just kind of like, yo, I know what you're about to say because you already said that verse. And then someone else did that. And I was just kind of like, all right, what is this?
It's one of those things that's just like they ran out of stuff to say. It's like,
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, yo, just let somebody else rap because it was a lot of the same people who like to just be heard. And then I kind of just felt like, is this a community or is this just for you to get your bars off for the Facebook group
yeah.
and to just promote your shit? And I'm just kind of like, all right, that's cool. And then I'm just kind of like, I just reached the point where I just was like, all right, I understand what this is. This is cool. This isn't what I thought it was, or it wasn't what it was when it started. So I guess I got through like the honeymoon phase.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like, all right, like if we're just gonna say our best shit every other week, I would rather just like not do that and just meet random weirdo niggas on the internet who do want to rap. I don't know. And then like, I don't know how you feel about freestyling. And I guess I could throw that question at you, but like I do really like the idea of like a freestyle. It's like you're doing this in real time. You should just be going off of what is either being said or what you just thought of. And it's just kind of like that's just something I wanted to get good at, and that's why I went to those things. And
Yeah.
it's like, if this isn't what I'm like, if this is not what we're here to do, like I could just be working on songs then,
Yeah.
or at least working on beats and shit, and not be fucking freezing in the middle of like the end of the fall and the winter and fucking November when we're still wearing fall jackets and shit, and it's like 40 degrees right now outside. You know what I
I
mean? Though, but like
no, yeah,
the
I
idea of the
definitely feel
freestyle,
you.
like, how do you feel about freestyles in 2021?
I love freestyles being straight off the dome. I get it that some guys can't do it, and if
Mm-hmm.
they're put on the spot, they have something ready to go. You know what I mean? Like I won't hold nothing against you if you're not ready for it, and they're just like, yo, you want freestyle? And you're like, yeah, hold up real quick, and you look up something real quick, maybe something you're working on just to try it out. I won't like just don't say you're a lyricist, like a dope lyricist, because I feel like
I won't even say
to
that
to
because I'm
be
not
like a
even a gatekeeper
that is
about it.
true. That is
You know
true.
what I mean?
Because I feel like some of my favorite freestyles, like one of my favorite freestyles of all time, I swear it's written. It's the Slaughterhouse remix, the Slaughterhouse freestyle with over Death of Auto Tune. Have you heard that one? That they go on for like 12 minutes, all four of them. But
Bro, that
like,
has to be written. That has the way
oh,
that song plays out, it has
de-
to be written.
definitely that, and they
But like the
finishing
thing is
each
with
other's
like
lines.
Crooked Eye, but
But
like
like
with
that's
Crooked Eye, like when you look at that roster, it's like fuck. There's a very good chance this also maybe could be like a genuine off the dome
yeah, because
freestyle.
my whole thing is that with Slaughterhouse, you never know. With them, I would think like they were finishing each other's lines like here and there. So maybe like they've dropped that line before, so they heard where they were going and just went with it, and then
Or
the
maybe
rest
it
was
was
off the
like
dome. You know
lines
what I
from
mean?
the album that we never heard. That's what I thought it was.
Exactly. Yeah, that
When
could
I
be
because
it
like
too.
that's because that was the era of like artists, or at least one of the first people I saw do it. And I think Kendrick did it once too. They like rap verses off of their albums. Like I think Kanye West did it when he brought Pusha T, Big Sean, all those niggas with him to Hot 97 during the My Dark Beautiful Twisted Fantasy like run.
And I think it's more to give them like give people a taste of what they sound like. Yeah, like maybe you don't know what Pusha T sounds like. You know what I mean? Maybe you're living under a rock, but maybe you don't know what Pusha T sounds like. So he's a spit a verse off the album.
Or because you know he's from Virginia. Like maybe he's bigger in Virginia than he is in New York.
Exactly.
And the last time we heard Push before that, I think it was Till the Casket Drops.
I believe so.
No.
Wait, hold up.
You can look it up real quick, but like it might have been a solo album. Actually, nah, because Till the Casket Drops came out what 2008, 2007? No, 2010. No.
Let me see. Hold up.
Because I know Lupe Fiasco did a freestyle to one of the songs that was on that album. The one that had Cameron.
Let me see. Where's it at?
Fun fact, that video, Backed by Popular Demand, I think is that one. Popular Demand, that one?
Yes. Yeah.
If that song, so if Lupe was if he put that on a mixtape in 2008, that album must have come out 2008, 2007 then. Till the Casket Drops?
I don't know why it's not coming out.
Bro, we need like a guy in the chair.
I need a facts.
What the fuck is his name on Rogan? Joey?
Oh my god, what's his name? 09.
2000. Okay. So wow, that was again 2009 to like 2012 is a crazy run.
Yeah.
Or at least like a lot of those albums very much helped me kind of like figure out what it is that I like in terms of music. And then I guess in high school I was kind of like fuck it, like I fuck with this Odd Future shit. But I just like got into like James Blake and like mad random like UK shit, like King Cruel and shit. And it was just kind of like how
something that nobody was listening to.
No, people were listening to it, but like my bubble wasn't just my friends, if that makes sense. My bubble were my friends in my life who I would talk to about music and shit. But like I also was on Tumblr and shit, and there were people in the UK or like people in California or like people like in the Midwest, and like they would share songs too. And that's how I started listening to like Toro y Moi and shit like that. And it's just like, yo, like there's a lot of music out there. And it's just like, it's never like daunting. Like it never hurts. What's the word? It never discourages me when like the statistic where it's like millions of songs and music videos are added to like YouTube and Spotify and shit every day. And I'm just kind of like, all right, like that makes sense with how easy it is to make music now. Because all you literally need, not even a computer, is an iPhone or a smartphone.
Yep.
And a program or an application that can run software to make beats that can run on your phone or iPad or whatever the fuck. And you can just record your rap into the phone because that's what Kanye did for his last album. Because the rumor is that he like made his whole album on or recorded all of the verses on an iPhone. But then like Madlib, who produced Pinata, he said all of the Pinata beats. Was it Pinata? No, it wasn't. No, I think it was Pinata. All the Pinata beats, no, Bandana beats were all produced on an iPad.
For real?
Entirely. Yeah. Whoa. I remember when I saw the interview about that, it was either Pinata or Bandana or like both. But he like in the interview, he was like, yeah, recently I've just been using this iPad. And he did all of Bandana on the iPad.
Yo, that's fucking
just kind of like, you have no, like, there's no such thing as no excuse, but it's like, you just have to be that much better than everyone else who can do it now because the entry level is the cost of entry is so low. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Bro, I learned how to mix music. Not good, but I learned how to mix music on my iPad. My iPod Touch. Remember when they had the DJ apps where you could just put your music in? And that's how I learned how to mix music. Not great, I would say, but if you went at it more than I did, you would probably pick it up. You know what I mean? So like you said, there's really no excuse nowadays. This technology is insane and you could do anything.
Technology has always been insane, but it's just like, so like back to like 2016, like technology being insane, like I was very much ready to like sign on to like some random person, like sign a contract with him to like produce for however long the contract would have been for. But that was also because I was desperate and I had just started interning at studios and like I didn't know the landscape because I didn't know where to look for the information on how to like distribute my shit or how to like be independent or how to like sustain your career until you can get funding or like a publishing deal with a company. Or if you wanted to go with a record deal, how to go about that. I had zero reference for that. And like obviously the first time somebody's like dingling and check in front of you and you're like, yo,
first
like,
opportunity, you're gonna be like,
first opportunity. I was like,
yeah.
oh fuck, just tell me where to sign. And then I thank God my boss at the time, Blue, shout out to him. He was just like, yo, like in this industry, before you take any money, always make sure it's in writing. And I was just like, bet. And like he just left it at that. And I was like, good to know. And I'm just like, and then it was one of those things where it's kind of like the things fell through. But like I'm kind of glad the way things fell through then because now I'm here now. If that makes sense. But it's kind of like had I like took that money then and like kept going that way, who knows what the fuck I would be doing now. If not just the same shit.
Yeah, facts. That's what I was gonna say. Who knows what would happen if you would have took that deal and started doing that? Who knows what would have happened? Would have fucked you over? Would have worked out? You know what I mean? Like you never know.
But it was because it was very early talks, but it was like I was sat down with his manager who was there in the studio session with us and shit. And it was just like, all right, like there's a lot I don't know, but I'm hype as fuck that like you just saying on this beat I just made with this other like the other engineer at the time. I'm just kind of like, all right, like I'm gassed, but also like, bro, like, what does this even mean? And like, there's a lot of shit about the music industry that, especially a young 19, 20, 21-year-old me didn't understand at the time, just because I just didn't have that information readily available.
Yeah.
But like, again, kind of because of the pandemic, I used the time during that quarantine to just be like, yo, like, I just got fired. Might as well like put energy into this music shit that I wanted to be doing anyway.
Which is insane that you decided, yo, let me just basically just do a crash course on the music industry while in the pandemic. I know you were doing it before that, but I know you really like got into it.
Like I made a schedule, like I was in school or shit. And it's just like, and then there was shit like that where it's kind of like I kept trying to think I had to catch up to like people or like I am starting at 0. How do I get to 100 as quickly as possible? And then that's hard to do, Joel, because
oh, definitely.
In my head, I was like, at 26, Jay-Z dropped Reasonable Doubt. And granted, he used to do a lot of freestyle battles, freestyling, rap battles. He used to sell crack and shit. And it's just like he's a very different person at 26 than I am at 26.
Yeah.
And also like he was just very good at rapping. I have to produce and then also make the album artwork and then figure out how the fuck I'm gonna post this and shit. And it's just like there's way more things that I have to be aware of that I can't just 100% only be a rapper, which is sadly the goal. But also like, of course I'm not gonna be fucking Jay-Z releasing Reasonable Doubt because I'm not that. So it's like whatever I end up doing now, it's like that'll be my thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, I definitely feel because I was gonna say the same thing too, is the different landscape that it is now than it was in what was it, 96 when he dropped that? It's two different things now. You know what I mean? Anybody could put music up now. That's the difficult part about it, I feel.
It's not even money. It's like, money. It's not even that, too. It's like a lot of the biggest named artists that you see just in the world also just so happen to have parents or families with bread. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like you just need that starting budget and you'll be Gucci if you can get the funding early.
Yeah.
And if he
got his funding through other stuff, but he got his money.
Activities, we'll call them.
Okay.
And it's just like, yo, like, and even then, James Ash, when he went up to Rock or Def Jam, the story is like, yo, we have, what did he say? He said they had 900,000. We don't need your fucking money. We need your like connects. And that was it. Like that was that meeting. But like,
which is
the
insane.
older I get, which is insane and kind of ballsy, but also it's like, the older I get, the more I realize it's like, all right, this is all just a game of leverage. And it's like, that's the business side. That's like the administrative shit that I get too bogged down in. And then I fucking spiral. I'm like, I got to get this manager. I got to get XYZ to like handle this shit. But it's like, yo, like, I really do think at the end of the day that like an artist is only as good as the team around him or her or them. You know what I mean? It's like, because there's so much shit, Joe, that goes into just one career. let alone trying to like start an independent label to release your shit. Because then it's like, well, if I want to release vinyl, I have to not only put up the bread for that, I also have to pay for the shipping so that the people who want to get it get it on time. And then they have to know that it came out. So I have to then buy Google ads to say that the vinyl is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like,
a real hustle. It's a real hustle. And
it's just
I give it to anybody that's doing it by themselves. All these independent artists are actually doing it themselves that don't really have a team. You know what I mean? That
it's
are
crazy. I don't know how they're doing it.
Just promoting it themselves. Like, I really give it to them because, like you said, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of things that you have to do to make sure that it's happening.
And it's like you can't. And then like the one thing that I've learned about myself is that like I'm a creature of habit. So like if I make one beat one day, I'm gonna either keep adding to that beat or want to make another one. And from making like one beat like on Monday, I've already made like 3 more just because I just keep making them. But like I'm probably only gonna keep 2 of them. Like I've reached the point now where I'm just kind of like, all right, like I like this, but I know this is more accessible. Like what Nas probably thought when he was writing, it was written where it's kind of like, how do I make a more accessible album? How do I like meet people in the middle where it's like, it's not as rushed sounding and it's more like polished and it has the time put into it, but also like, is this different enough for people to even want to share it, let alone check it out? And doesn't just sound like what someone else is doing. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I just started rapping on dusty sounding gritty Griselda shit, it wouldn't be as good as Griselda. So why would someone want to listen to that? Granted, people probably do that to hopefully like try to get signed by Griselda or like someone who wants to get into the market with that sound of hip hop. There's a lot of shit like that that used to happen, and I guess it still kind of does, where it's kind of like you're starting to see certain names pop up with certain artists. Like the Kid Leroy just got a Justin Bieber feature, right? Like that's not cheap. Like that's a big name for someone who's still very early on in his rap career. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I don't know, but it's just kind of like you kind of see like, I guess how I look at it, like not as optimistic and like rose-colored glasses type shit, where it's like, oh, this is just the game of who has the funding versus who's actually good enough and deserves to be put on a pedal, like at the platforms and all that shit. But like that's just me being weirdly pessimistic about music.
No, but it does make sense.
The industry.
It does make sense though. It's not like far-fetched. Like all these songs that pop off on TikTok, like it's cool, pop off for a couple months, it's just but like, what are you gonna do?
Genius marketing.
Yeah, but also what happens after that? You know what I mean? Are you always gonna strike gold and have that TikTok fame, or you gonna always get those songs that are so catchy? So you say once you make a beat, you just keep on going. So we'll go into the producing side. Who influenced you? Who were you listening to that you actually thought about, or was it always from the beginning? Wow, not only the lyrics, but wow, the production on this, the beat is crazy. This instrumental is insane. Yeah. Who are the people that you were listening to?
Yeah, and I guess I could do it with artists too, because I kind of can't separate. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
like, artists lyrically are only as good lyrically if I can like the beat too.
No, yeah.
And I guess the first thing that comes to mind is like, I listened to Alfredo so fucking much when it dropped, Joel.
Bro.
That was a very good album.
Bro, I'm still listening to it. Come on.
Me too. And it's just like, that was an album I went to a lot when I was like figuring out how to say things in relation to me, but finding new ways to say new things. Yeah. If that makes, it was like a whole, so like listening to it is like, this is someone who grew up in Gary, or not, I don't know. I think it is Gary, Indiana, right? Is that where Freddie Gibbs is from?
I'm not too good at that. I think it's Indiana. Yeah.
I thought it was
not
Gary,
positive, not positive.
But like, just like listening to how he just like would hit like random like triplet flows and shit. Yeah, he's from Gary, Indiana. But like the idea of that, like somebody could do the things that he just did on an Alchemist beat kind of just opened my brain a little more. Just like, yo, there really is no rules to any of shit in terms of lyrics, in terms of making beats. And so I guess that's a good like starting point where it's kind of like, how do you produce with an artist in mind versus how do you write to the beat, and kind of like where does that meet in the middle? So I guess that's my producing style. It's like, I want to make something you can hear and remember, but not be repetitive, like it's just a loop. And it sounds like that's really hard and impossible to do, but there's a way to finesse it as long as you have a good enough melody and shit like that, and like there's good stacking in terms of like what's driving the melody or the progression, what's it riding on in terms of the bass line and shit like that. And then this is just like, yo, like what I think about is so not all over the place, but it's very much refined because I would just sit down in front of my computer and be like, what am I gonna make? It all comes down to two things. What is the vibe and what sounds go with that vibe you're trying to capture? Because a lot of the time, even instrumental beats and shit like that, which are becoming weirdly more popular, I've noticed, is that like, yo, like if you can just capture a vibe without words and people like that vibe,
that's another level.
Like EDM. That's why EDM to me is so fucking impressive, because like that shit doesn't have a lot of those songs that are like big like festival sellers and shit, like fucking like a lot of Skrillex early shit. Like there's like phrases and words in them, but like
it's not
you don't
a
listen
song.
to them because it's catchy. You listen to it because of the vibe it gives you. And probably the first time it's like I was with my boys like in our college dorm room and shit when I first started listening to like Porter Robinson and other EDM artists and shit like that. And it's just like, yo, like there's an energy in that type of music that's very like up. And it makes sense for when you see the song, like when the beat drops and shit like that, everybody's jumping and shit.
Yeah.
And then like I see that vibe and I'm like, I understand how to make, and like I made some random shit where it is EDM just to like fuck with it, just because like beat practice, and like I like that vibe, but I always come back to like soulful 80, not even, sometimes like 79 to like 88 BPM, like slower than like what usually people are like listening to and shit. And it's like, this is my sweet spot. Like I don't want to leave this. And it's like, obviously, like I'm gonna eventually have to like branch out and shit, but like this next shit that I'm working on is very much of the idea of like, the best way to describe where I am like producer wise is like, how do you make music if hip hop started a decade earlier? I don't know how to answer. Like, that's what I'm trying to answer when I produce now. So that was the first question I asked myself. It's like, what would have happened at the like the very end of the 60s going into the 70s, which was like country, and like no, it was more like doo-wop and shit, leaning into like soul music, which was sad because like that was what jazz musicians had to do as like background musicians, because jazz music was losing money, but soul music was becoming popular. So they were like had to like not like, because it's like I don't know what the vibe was for soul music back then, but like doesn't sound commercial or radio to us now because that shit is so full. And it's like, how do you capture that vibe and then turn it into something that is supposed to be an accident, right? Like, how do you then say hip hop actually started in 1969 or 1971 instead of the end of the 70s after the Bronx riots? You know what I mean? Like, what does that sound like? And I'll tell you, Joel, that shit sounds as not as complicated as you would think, because when you think about the songs back then, it was very much just like 4 chords and people singing, but there was just so much room for the artist. It wasn't too complicated, but people liked it because it was just the bare bones of the music.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like my big challenge. It's like I usually do this where I make like a shit ton of beats and then I kind of just hit beat block, but my brain is telling me it's not beat block. It's time to move on. And then that's when I switch hats and I go from producer to rapper. And then I'm like, what does this sound like? I have all types of templates and shit, but like right now it's like, it's very like, I'm trying to think like, yeah, it's just super like, not European pop inspired, but like, it is very much like, I want to say for the majority of all the songs I've been producing, I haven't used like a drum kit noise. It's all like live drum sounds and shit.
Oh, for real?
But played as if it's on a drum machine.
Yo, the way
so it's all like break beats and shit, but it's no trap sounds, and it's very like real and raw. And I wish I like had the bread to like put some samples and shit in there, but like that shit is expensive, and like
of course,
I don't want to get sued. But like a lot of what I'm learning right now is like how to like capture that vibe of like soul and shit from that era, and like kind of repurpose it without resampling, if that makes sense. Where it's kind of like, this progression is sticking out to me. Why? Let me see how close I can make something that gives me this vibe resample that.
Yeah, not the exact same thing.
Not the exact same thing, because at that point you're kind of just copying it. And I always go back to this one quote. I think Andy Warhol said it: "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Where it's kind of like, I'm not copying the notes, I'm stealing this vibe, and I'm going to recreate it with these chords and this bass line, and then we're gonna work from there. And like a lot of it is just very much like ideas in terms of producing. And I can talk hours about producing and lyrics too, because it's just like, yo, like when it comes to producing, all you really have to do is make something that sounds familiar, but it's new enough that you don't want to change the song, but it's familiar enough that you want to finish the song, if that makes sense. Which doesn't make sense and is counterintuitive, but it works.
Okay, yo, your mind with music is fucking insane. Okay, can I just say that? Because the way that you're describing stuff is so like bare to it, like bare to the bones. That's just like
you can see it.
Yeah, and like not a lot of people could describe it like that. And this is what I'm saying, man. You are a different breed because it's fucking insane.
It's just references, because it's like I'm not doing anything that new, but the idea of someone rapping on beats that sound like Paul McCartney and fucking Quincy Jones might have helped produce it.
Yeah, because that's what
crazy.
That's what I'm saying.
Like, who would think of that shit in 2021?
That's what the fuck I'm saying. Who sits down and says, what if rap wasn't created in 73? What if it was really created 10 years earlier, 63?
Decade early. Yeah.
Yeah, like that's crazy. Fucking insane. No, by the way, shout out to hip hop. I think it turned 48 yesterday. Whatever.
Yeah, it did. Which is creepy because I had that idea without knowing it was the hip hop's anniversary recently, or like about to happen. Like, so if I chilled with you this past like weekend, right?
Yeah.
I want to say I had that idea right before, if not like around that time, because like the shit I played you was very much like, there was the one song that was like, oh, this goes hard, but like there was the first song I played you that was like, this is the vibe for the next project.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna drop that other shit just like as a Lucy eventually.
Okay.
Well, now, dude, on some like scary hour shit, how he just drops like 3 random shits and like, God, I love Drake, but like that's another conversation.
That guy's fucking insane too. But
like when you think of,
I was just saying the way that you just think of shit, that like I feel like nobody else. Maybe there are people out there in the world, but nobody that I've met that have the same mindset as you. Of exactly. That they're like, yo, this is out of the box. I think out of the box, but this is like down the street, around the corner from the box. Like this is way the fuck out the box. Like nobody else.
You gotta be out of, because like the thing is, it's like, so let's say the box is the genre or any genre of music you make, and let's say that's hip hop rap, right? You got to be willing to be like, this box has been here before me, so let me at least acknowledge what was here before me. Because like nobody, like imagine if Jordan and LeBron were just like, nah, I'm gonna just wake up one day and just play basketball in their like 20s. You know what I mean? Like you can't just like ignore the fact that like that's not how they started playing basketball. And in fact, they started to play at a very young age. And some people may say like some of them are groomed to like be like NBA stars, but it's just kind of like, yo, like Michael Jordan made a decision to be good at this thing to the point where he literally changed how the entire sport was played in an entire country because he was that good.
Yeah.
You don't have to be that good. And sometimes artists, I myself included, we sometimes have these crazy expectations. Like me comparing myself to Jay-Z at 26, where it's kind of like, again, who knows how long he's been rapping before then?
Yeah.
Versus when we first heard him on an album. And it's just kind of like when you see who were his fucking mentors and shit, and also like he was good friends with like Biggie, like it was going to happen and that he was going to be a good rapper.
He was around that vibe.
He was that
in that circle. Yeah.
And it's just kind of like, all right, like you see the people he came up with, I should look into those people. Boom. Now I'm starting to get a better idea of why Jay-Z raps as well as he does. It's because of the people he kept around.
Oh, of course.
When you can like break shit down that easily, and you just kind of look at the scope of it, it's just kind of like, all right, Jordan started here. Where can I start? Jay started there. Where can I start? And it's kind of like, all right, I started with 30 songs, did it. Where do I go next? And boom, I have this crazy idea that I'm definitely gonna like send you some shit that I'm like been working on and writing. And it's just kind of like, you kind of just got to take it one step at a time, bro. Like, you can't like be like, all right, I got to get an album out Q4 of like 2021 because it's going to be fall. People are going to be back in school. Boom, there's a whole circuit there. Go do college shows. The colleges are letting people come to the campus. And it's just like, that's a very like, excuse me, that's a very like suit, like corporate way of looking at it, where it's kind of like, this is just a commodity. And then you kind of hear it because some artists today, they keep chasing that one sound of their first hit because people like the first one.
Yep.
And it's kind of like, you see very rarely like a Tyler the Creator, or even a Kanye West, where it's kind of like they recognize that people like that. And instead of doing what most people would do and just be like, I just have to make this song again and again, they purposely went out, and Jay-Z too, and Nas, they purposely went out of their way to make different sounding songs because that's what it meant to them. But also they did it for the fan, because it's like, why would you want the same song twice?
Yeah, like that's how I feel with the J. Cole project that dropped this year. I feel like a lot of Cole fans, like I'm a Cole fan, but a lot of like diehard fans were like, yo, this is an high album. And it was just because he was straight just dropping bars on there. It wasn't more about the J. Cole storytelling. Yeah, a couple songs here and there, but they're used to the whole album just following a story, which is dope.
A narrative.
But he decided to switch it up, and he decided, yo, this album is just gonna be bars. I'm just gonna be rapping. Like, it doesn't, you could take a story out of it, but it might not have a story. It's really up to you to.
And even then, it very like, it's like, and not to cut you off, but like,
no, you good.
It's almost like, I don't know if you peep this, but like, people are so fucking angry and like miserable all the time online, bro. And it's just kind of like, yo, like,
man,
how do you reach a point where like now you're complaining about your favorite artist? Like, that's nuts to me. Unless that's not your favorite artist and you're just trying to have a critical point to make, which I like, that's what I want people to have. Like, I want people to hear songs and be like, this is what it made me think and feel, versus I'm just waiting for XYZ to drop his review video and then be like, this is a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, all right, that's who you are as a music listener. Cool.
Yeah.
I would prefer to have not an intellectual level, but like at least some sort of like better conversation with someone who at least got to the conclusion on their own why they liked or disliked an album.
Yeah.
And so exactly. I say that to say like, like, this might be some of the best rapping that I think J. Cole's done, but like, I'd rather him just fucking grow the fuck up. Like, I still don't think he should have dropped that No Name track, but like, for the most part, his career has made sense in terms of where he's been versus what he's releasing. Yeah. And it's kind of funny that he dropped that album off season and then Tyler dropped Call Me If You Get Lost, because there's a weird amount of similarities in the two, in that it's pretty much just the two of them victory lap rapping about how, oh, I'm a millionaire now and I have new problems, but like they'll never be as bad as the first problems that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's just kind of like, yo, like, they're here. And granted, like, other artists have done that when it's like, all right, maybe you shouldn't be making music right now because you're facing some charges. And it's just kind of like, all right, cool. But like, that's what we need in music. It's not so much just the same thing over and over. We want content that makes you say whether or not you still fuck with this artist.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what was I gonna say after that? It's just like, it's the thing of what's the word? It's like what you grew up with and what you got used to that artist being versus who they are now, right? And it's like, imagine someone who heard Reasonable Doubt in 1996 and then they heard Tom Ford off of Magna Carta. And imagine if there was no other albums in between. They missed The Dynasty. They missed all in my Lifetime volumes 1 through 3. They missed all like the first 2 Blueprints and Blueprint 3, because I think Blueprint 3 came out 2009.
Yeah, right before that.
The 2009 album.
Yeah.
And then it's like, when you look at that, where it's kind of like, if you were to make that jump, like, oh man, like, I can't wait to see, like, if you were in a coma, it's like, fuck man, like this rookie Jay-Z from 96, let's see what he's been up to. And it's just kind of like Jay-Z featuring Future, or it's like DJ Khaled featuring Jay-Z, and it's just kind of like, all right, like, this is like not what you grew up listening to Jay-Z for, but it's who he is now. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, you can't be upset with someone else for growing, whether it's for the better or for the worse. But it's just like, yo, like, I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, damn, Iggy Azalea's albums don't hit like her mixtape.
Probably, to be honest, yeah.
I'll be honest. I liked her mixtape more than I liked her albums. Her mixtape had a lot of good production on it and a lot of like
the
EDM,
album wasn't the
like
album.
synth.
Album
New classic, right?
I believe
I guess
so.
that's the best way to like describe the type of music I'm trying to like. Just like a horrible example, the new classic, where it's kind of like, how do you make something that sounds nostalgic?
Yeah.
Like, how are you making that new thing, but also you want it to feel old? It's weird.
Well, it's kind of
doable.
Yeah, it's kind of like how when rappers just keep, like, not rappers, but like producers keep resampling old songs. Like the one that just came out with French Montana. Damn, what's it called? Fuck with me, get the bag. Right? Is that what it's called? Hold on, let me make sure this is what it's called, because I don't want to say.
A perfect example is the one, was that on the DJ Khaled album, the Rihanna and the Fat Joe Luther Vandross sample? Remember, it was like that one like person on Twitter did this. Wow, I'm bad at fucking song names. Hold on. I don't know if you noticed. That's crazy. As someone who
so Fresh Montana one is "Fuck with Me, Get a Bag," but it's just resampling "Deja Vu" with Peter Gunn, and it's just talking about how the Bronx is the Bronx. You know what I mean? But it's just the Fresh Montana vibe on it. It's the flip on it of just taking something old and how they just went on that, murdered the fucking beat, and he flipped it and made it more into like like a party track. You know what I mean? And it's a Fresh Montana track.
That's what music, or at least that's what hip hop has always been, because that's how it started. And it's just kind of like, we've now reached this point in 2021 where we can become a reflexive genre that samples itself. Like I swear, like the Lil Wayne song with Swiss Beats. Uproar, that samples Special Delivery.
Yes, Special Delivery.
And I'm just like, and Lil Wayne already rapped on that original beat on, what was it? Was it the Dedication 6 or Dedication 5?
It was on one of the Dedications. I know it was on Dedication. I
don't
know which number.
I think it's called Green Ranger. But like, bro, like, I just hope we reach a point where it's like we can become like an infinity symbol of like resampling ourselves and learning how to have better business practices and like the fucking like the writers and the publishing and shit like that. Cause like most of the time the producer has to give up their share because they're the person who made the beat, who sampled something, and then, which is why I am trying to avoid sampling, because that's very expensive.
So I was gonna ask you, how do you feel about sampling? How do you feel about, like, not you per se, but I know that people have hit up artists and be like, yo, is it cool? And they'll say right out no. Like, they won't even say, oh, I want this percent. They'll just straight out say no. Like, do you think that's okay?
I think it's 100% okay. With how this country set up copyright law, it protects the person who created it first, which is, I'm always for protecting the creator.
Yeah.
What I don't like has happened with music, or at least rap early on, was that, or not early on, I would say in its early infancy, like in the early 90s, it very much became the game of how can we finesse these artists out of as much money as possible? And then how can we finesse it such that it's still the sample-based songs? And then you saw that it was a lot of the money was coming out of the artist's side, not the manager or the publisher side, which I think is unfair, because it's like, you're telling me you, as this big machine, can't afford to clear the sample for me. And you've seen that, like, sometimes they do it, but again, it's like, that's just money you owe the label back, which is fucked. But again, it's like, if you have that rapport with your label, and it's just like one of those things where you could talk it through and it's just be like, look, I don't have the collateral. You put it up and I'll give you like one other album or another like single release as collateral, where it's like, that's up to you and them. I would prefer to just do publishing shit. But also, who's to say I wouldn't like find a label deal that I don't like, and then I'm like trying to do that one.
Yeah.
But for the most part, copyright law has to be the way that it is, because it's protecting the person's song. Case in
Yeah,
point,
I
how
get
would
it.
you feel if Trump was coming out to Peter Guns and was playing, all you heard was Uptown Baby at one of his rallies in the background because there's no copyright law?
No, but I'm
How would
talking
you
about
feel?
more like hitting up the producer and the artist
Oh,
and
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
"Can
yeah.
I use this?" and them saying, "Play it out." No, like
Oh, yeah, no. So,
I feel like if you put it out, it's for everybody
mhm,
to enjoy. If I want to try and flip it and try and make something new out of it, I should be able
mhm,
to as an artist,
mhm.
right?
No, no,
Do
no, I
you
feel
feel
you.
that way or?
I feel you, but I don't agree because that's so I did this thing where like I have a lot of shit in my brain happening at once, and I know what that's called, and it's just all falls under this umbrella term of like licensing. You have to
Yeah,
buy the right license to then use the song however you want, whether it's commercially in a commercial or like to reproduce it or like make a derivative version of it to sample. What I was explaining in terms of licensing is that like what also falls under that umbrella is if you wanted to do like a live show or if you wanted to like have some sort of like TV show and you just were like, hey, can I use your song as the host? You're technically trying to get that artist to let you borrow the song off of license. Granted, at our level, we can't afford fucking licenses.
yeah,
So it's
facts.
all off of word and favors and shit. But like I said the Trump example because it's the same idea of like you're buying the license to reuse that song however you want to as an artist. But then anybody could then use that argument for themselves because it's not so much then about whether or not you want to share the song, it's how does it benefit you,
Wait,
which
so
is what, yeah.
I was gonna say, so if you flip something, I always thought like if you flip something, you have to like present it to whoever. Like if you sample
Mhm.
somebody, you have to present it to them and be like, "This is what I'm doing with it. This is how I'm using it." I thought that's
Mhm.
how it was. I didn't know that you could just get licensing.
You can get licensing, and there's like sites like that. Like I interned with a company. Fuck it, you know, I'll give them a shout out. Shout out to Tracklib because they were actually pretty dope. So like Tracklib's whole thing is, and also I love using it because I can sample because I know I already own the license to use that song as a sample. But what happened, and at least what used to happen back in the day, and it still happens today, perfect example, Juice WRLD and Sting, if you make a song
Yeah,
and you put it out, then they're liable to be like, give me all of this back end that you owe me. Because you have no, because like if you go to court, you're gonna have to give it to them anyway, because that's a
yeah,
lawsuit you will lose because you didn't clear the sample. But if you're clearing it beforehand, they have all of the leverage to the point where they can, like you said, just be like, nah, no, thank
got
you.
you.
That's what, yeah. And it's just like that is it is what it is at that
Yeah,
point. And then it's like, and even if they don't say no, they can literally say any number and you either agree and you have to pay them that number and then you can put the song out and then it's all good.
yeah.
Or you
I
say
mean,
nah
I'm fine with
and
that.
then
Saying like, even if you put like a high number, like that's on the artist. But I feel like just saying no is like that's kind of foul.
it's foul, but also like
But I
if
get it.
I'm
Like you said, it's on them. Like it's their
like there's a
creation.
song that Kanye sampled a shot, not Shaka Khan. He sampled Patty. Was it Patty LaBelle? I think it was Patty LaBelle, but I think it's School Spirit. Kanye West School Spirit. Let's just see what the sample was, right? So like, let's say it's Patty LaBelle. No, it's Aretha Franklin. Ooh, fuck. Right?
Okay.
Aretha Franklin, recipe. She said, and I remember watching an interview. He could release that song and like she would clear the sample. I don't remember how much he had to pay her. I don't know if that was ever disclosed.
Probably a good amount
It
of bread.
had to be a clean song. It couldn't be explicit. So they could
Oh,
throw
okay.
in
So
shit
that was a
like that.
request.
So the request,
Not
like that
request,
song,
but
when you
like you
listen,
have to. Not really a
yeah.
request, but like
So like, and
you
like,
gotta be
there's
clean.
like, and there's a leaked version of like like a dirty version of the song. Remember like dirty versions of songs, and it's like,
Yeah.
but like
Explicit.
the album version, like in the chorus where he's like, "I'm gonna be on MTV, mama. I'm gonna put," and it's not shit. He says, "I'm gonna put ish down," and it's ish every time he says it because that was like the thing. Aretha was like, "You can't curse in the song."
Yeah.
So it's like there's like little shit like that they can do, but I think for the most part, it's gonna hit an overhaul, and there's like laws in place that protect the person sampled. Like there's this weird, I forgot what it's called, but it's like if the thing you're sampling is 70 whatever years old, it's in what's called public domain, and then you can sample that. So the perfect example
Oh.
of that is like stories, if they're a certain age, hit public domain, and then you see all these spin-offs come out from like, so like something that just hit public domain is The Great Gatsby. I think 2020 is when it entered the public domain. And now I promise you, we're either gonna get a Muppets Gatsby version, we're gonna get a whole bunch of shit about like making fun of the Gatsby shit. But like, so like my girl's a librarian. She fucking loves historical fiction shit. And a lot of the books she likes to read sometimes are like Jane Austen shit, right? So like Pride and Prejudice and shit like that.
Okay.
And like, because Pride and Prejudice is in public domain, there's mad books, like spin-off books that people who aren't even like related to the Austen like family or like Brontes and shit like that.
Just continue.
They can just write, it's essentially like fan fiction that you legally can put out because it's in public domain. It's crazy. Like people publish books and shit. Yeah, like it's a whole
flex. Wait, is the same thing in music too? Is that like
yes. So like I remember I don't remember what year, but I remember kind of around the time when like it was a big deal because Happy Birthday entered the public domain, which meant you can sing it on TV and shit like that. Because I remember like there would always be like oh, you can only sing like a part of it and then that's it.
Oh like, yes, like, yes, yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like, again, it's like when you look back, like there's not much music to work with that's that old, but like there's some shit you could definitely do. And like you just gotta like be smart in how you find samples, because like it's easier to sample someone who is like a smaller artist on YouTube. And then it's easier to contact them because you shouldn't. I 100% understand people like the whole sample thing where it's like, if you can't recognize it, you can't like they can't sue you, but then it's also like they can hit you with that then and sample your shit. And it's just kind of like this whole thing, especially in the rap community, of like, is this stealing? Is this wrong? Especially if you can't even recognize where it's from, do you have to clear it? And it's like that's something that's definitely an issue, but also a non-issue, because it's just like, if you don't even know where the fuck this is from, who do I have to ask to use it?
Yeah, or even that thing where somebody will create a beat and then maybe a bigger rapper hears it. Like that was the big thing with Tory Lanez a couple of years ago. We talked about it in college when it happened, was that he heard a beat, he got his producer, said recreate that, and it was basically like, it's not your beat, we recreated the beat even though it was the same beat, like down to the second, but
and even then
it was recreated, like it wasn't the same beat.
And the only person who can actually actively have a case is the producer, because there's like weird mini copyright laws where it's like, as long as you can prove that the original recording came from your thought, like you were the first person to like print it and like export it and be like, here's the song, and you have proof that you shared it with someone, then you can trace it back to you. Then that proves your your whole theory / argument is now proven, because you can prove that you've at least shared and exported this recording. Like you don't have to copyright your songs, which is something that I weirdly thought was a real thing, but like technically you don't have to.
Wow, I'm learning a lot today.
Because it's like,
I've learned a lot today.
Copyright only helps you, but technically you own the copyright of anything you produce as long as you share it with someone else and that person receives it and like it says like, I got this. If that exchange happens,
got it. Yeah, like
that's the proof that shows you were the person that this originates from. But then like shit like that, where it's kind of like Tory Lanez making a whole other beat, that's just theft. Like you can't fucking argue that like literally recreate what fucking Robin Thicke got sued off of Vibes.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like it's just like the sampling thing is always gonna be a big thing, especially because sampling is how this genre started. So it's like it's always gonna be a big hot topic issue, whether or not it's about who's clearing what. And then it's just kind of like, yeah, cool, shit's entering the public domain, but who the fuck is trying to like sample classical music? Because now we're sampling Peter Guns. You know what I mean? Like it's all this shit of like, I pray we're not the snake eating its own tail, and we can somehow find a way to like make this shit cyclical and like last longer than just like, what, now someone else from the Bronx gonna sample French Montana who sampled, you know what I mean? Like, is that just gonna be a thing?
Well, it's like the circle.
And I hope that's not the case.
It's like history repeats itself though.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, whatever you grow, like we talked about earlier, whatever you grow up listening to, that's what inspires you. And then maybe one day, like a French Montana, probably grew up listening to Deja Vu
French
and say,
Montana.
and say, you know
And
what?
mac and cheese and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But
and
that's what
it's
I'm
like,
saying. Like, even like if you listen to a Nas, you could hear the Rakim in his voice. You know what I mean? You could hear what he takes from different artists, and you could say like, "Oh, he kind of sounds like this guy," and you could also hear that in the 2000s. That you could say, "Oh, wow, they take a lot of inspiration." Action Bronson sounds like Ghostface, like
Ghostface.
to the T, which is fucking nuts. But it's just like he didn't mean to do it. That's just one of the guys that inspired him, and he thought he sounded dope, not noticing that's what he was sounding like.
Yeah, and even like to step away from lyricist rappers, where it's like more traditional trap artists like Travis Scott. His early shit sounds like not the production, but his voice sounds a lot like Kanye in terms of delivery and like cadence and shit. Where it's kind of like, all right, that's just your influence. And it's funny because like I like try to listen to my shit. I'm just kind of like, this is all over the place. You don't really sound like somebody else, but like for better or worse, that's not a bad thing. Like
no,
you kind of
not
don't
at
want
all.
to sound like somebody else. Yeah.
Because like that was like I think we talked about the other day when Tory Lanez Zilla came out, they kind of had the same kind of sound. You know what I mean? You hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
You said Bryson Tiller?
Bryson Tiller and Tory Lanez, they kind of had like the same kind of sound.
I heard the Tory Lanez, but I assumed you said Bryson Tiller. I remember that too.
Yes.
And I thought that was dumb as shit. Because they did not sound like one.
They had one song that kind of sounded because that sounded similar because they both went down the R&B vibe where no one was really touching R&B. So it was like, oh, these guys are sounding the same. But that's but we'll go into another topic. Now, we talked about like artists you listen to. We talked about producers that influenced you all around.
Well, I think I only named like Alchemist, but
you talked about Alchemist, and then we got into the whole.
So there's Quincy. I've been fucking with some like Beatles shit. Like I listen to a lot of shit that isn't rap to be inspired to make rap music. It's weird, but like that's just how my brain works. But like I would say the biggest producer right now, who's the biggest inspiration, it's a mix between. His name is, I think his name is, what's his name? Is it Kevin Parker? It's Tame Impala. So his name is Tame Impala, but it's just one dude, and his real name is, what is it? Is it Parker? Yeah, Kevin Parker. And then there's also, what's his name? The dude who does all the gorilla shit. Damon Albarn, I think his name is. Auburn? Yeah.
Okay.
And like he's like the songwriter from like most of the songs, but he's also like the lead vocalist, instrumentalist.
Oh wow.
And, like the voice of like the lead cartoon version or character of the Gorillas. So it's like I love the idea of like being the brain behind all the little shit, like a Tyler the Creator and shit like that, where it's kind of like I'm making everything with my hands, and this is my vision from the beginning to the end. And it's just like, so like my shit is very much like embedded in songwriting, but songwriting with the intent to make a rap song, if that makes sense. So not just making a rap, but like making a song that I'm going to rap on. Yeah. It's weird, but it don't make sense when you hear the shit. But like, yeah, it's a lot of like,
it's more of the mindset of creating a song and not just a verse and
putting it on top of a beat, which is like what rap is, but also just kind of like, does the beat reflect the point of the song? Like, are there things happening in the beat that's happening in the song? Like, it's things that like I'm more like in tune to, and as like I'm in producer mode right now, making the beats, and then as a rapper, still trying to figure out what it is that I need to be saying on this stuff. But I have a better idea of what I'm gonna be rapping about and shit, because it's just like the first or whatever the next project is, because this would be the second project following this first one dropping in like about 2 weeks, I would say, or a week from tomorrow. So
nice. Dope.
Yeah. Well, it's scheduled for next week, but it's whenever my distributor wants to put it out. Because again, as like independent shit, like you're pretty much just liable to whatever the fuck the site wants to do. And I'm like in the process of like switching catalogs over to like another distributor, and it's all this other shit that I gotta like be doing. But like for the most part, like if I don't do it, who's gonna do it for me?
Facts.
Type of shit.
That's dope though.
Yeah.
But all right, so those are the ones that are influencing you right now. Can you give me a top 3 all time? Top 3 producers all time that,
Oh fuck.
in your opinion.
All right. So in no particular order, my top 3 producers are Pharrell Williams, Kanye West, and Madlib.
Oh
I
man, bye.
chose those 3 specifically because like they are in 3 very different lanes, but like they kind of intertwine and like
Yes.
trade lanes and shift lanes. Sometimes, not often. Probably Kanye and Madlib, at least in Kanye's earlier career, way more just because of he was doing a lot more sample based shit. But like, I think those are my top 3 of all time because it's just kind of like you gotta like look at what they've produced. So I'm a fan of like Madlib, like Madeline and shit, Rest in Peace, Doom, and all that shit. But like Madlib has jazz music. Like he has jazz albums that I fuck with sometimes more than some of his other albums that are more rap.
Yo, to be honest, didn't even know that.
It's fire. So like he has, I think it's called, is it the Shades of Blue album? It's like him and Blue Notes, I think. Blue Note. So like Blue Note, I don't know if you don't know the name. Blue Note
I've
is
heard
like
them.
it's Shades of Blue, right? They're a very
Shades of
famous like
Blue.
blue. Like if you were into like vinyl collecting, you would know the name Blue Note, and like you would know what a Blue Note cover looks like because all of their like jazz covers and shit are very like eye popping, like there's shit like that that I would just study when I'm like learning how to like design album covers and shit. Blue Note is a very good example. I think Vox did a video on them about how like their like album photography and like discography covers and shit were like crazy ahead of its time and shit. And like had a very like you knew it was a Blue Note record because of what it looked like.
Yeah. It wasn't questionable.
And yeah, and so like this is just a remix album that Madlib did in 2003 of Blue Note songs from the archives. But it's like jazz music with hip hop drums and shit, and it's fucking smooth as shit. Highly recommend it. But like, there are things that Madlib continues to do to like push hip hop forward, and in that, it's how conventional can it be to sample, and he somehow has not run out of songs to sample, which I think is fucking impossible with how much music he's been putting out. And that's why I think like if
and how
he
long
weren't
he's
in my
been
top,
doing it.
exactly. And so if he wasn't in my top 3, that same could be said for Alchemist in terms of like their ears for finding samples and then finding that one break or that one point in the song that's like, oh, this is where rappers should be.
Yeah.
On a genre that isn't even close to rap. It's just kind of like the fact that you can hear someone rapping on that one break and they kind of rap, but like the fact that they like hear it and they're like, oh, clearly this is like something that I should turn into a beat makes me so fucking mad, but also respects their craft so much more. But also like, bro, like they're like what in their 40s and 50s? Like, of course, and when you hit that age and you've been doing it for that long, literally longer than we've been alive, maybe, they're just gonna be that good. And I say that to say with Pharrell Williams, where it's like he has a background in band and like writing music and music theory and shit. That man has made songs and rap music that are so fucking hard. And then this nigga really made Happy for the Minions movie, like Despicable Me. And it's just like, yo, like, how did he do both? Yeah. And it's just one of those things where it's like, it just makes sense because it's not about whether or not he does one or the other. He's doing it all. Because he can do clips and he can do NERD shit. And then he can do Daft Punk fucking funk disco shit.
Bro, it's insane.
And then he's
one of the top guys.
Like it doesn't make sense, but it does because it's Pharrell doing it. You know what I mean? Where it's like,
because that's how I feel. That's how I feel personally, in my own opinion, about Alchemist. How he can make a song back in the day that people are shooting each other to with Mobb Deep, but then he's doing albums now with Freddie Gibbs, Conway, Action. Like he's so like
versatile, bro. And I'll go the extra step with Alchemist. This man was making songs people were definitely robbing people to in the 90s, to making one of the most beautiful songs I heard in I think 2019 when 2019 when not Oxnard. What was the one after Oxnard? The Anderson .Paak album dropped, and it was the Smokey Robinson joint. Do You Want to Stay Together?
Yeah.
That shit is smooth as fuck. And it's like, fuck.
Everything, bro. He's one. Those are three guys that you could
and
put
then Kanye,
that. You
you kind of don't even have to talk about. Like,
yeah,
he is who he is.
Those are guys that you could either just put like a drum pad in front of them or just vinyls next to them, and they'll figure something out.
Or not even. Just give them a MacBook, and they'll definitely come back with maybe an idea for an album.
Oh,
they'll come back with at least one song, but possibly at least like a rough sketch of an album. Yeah. And then I guess honorable mentions would be, obviously Alchemist would definitely be in the top 5. And then to finish the top 5 would be Mike Dean, because that nigga has crazy chord progressions. And it's like,
yep.
Like, again, like the shit that I played you that other day was like with the drill shit, where it was like just the fucking like the choir that was like digital. Then there was the bass, and then there was like the other shit going on. It's like, that's very Mike Dean inspired. And like, it's just like the layers that he can put on top of layers on top of a chord progression. And then he'll fuck with the chord progression, but then the layers he puts on top of that and under it with the bass are still moving, but then they fucking switch up too with the chords. It's just like, this is a whole journey and ride he's bringing you on. And it's like, if you can go that extra step, and like I could go extra like esoteric with this shit and like tell you what he's trying to do with that visually, but that's so extra. But like, just know that like anytime you hear something that man touches, there's something that he's not only adding, there's a whole scene. Like, he's literally painting a picture whenever he adds the finishing touches to a song. It's beautiful. It's fucking crazy, that man.
Yo, he's another one that's ridiculous.
Fucking producer.
All right, so that was the top five rappers to close it out. And that doesn't mean like they gotta be the best lyricists. Just like in your own opinion, if you had to give a top 5, whether you like just their style, the way they would just give out punchlines, anything, it's based on you.
Yeah. And I'll like be completely honest. I try to listen to as little rap as possible so that I don't end up sounding like someone else.
Gotcha.
But when I do listen to rap, it's either I'm studying an artist or I need to revisit that album just because I want to get it again. So in no particular order, my top 5 rappers would be Jay-Z, again, Kanye, and then a third, it would definitely have to be Tyler, the Creator. Fourth would definitely be, I'm trying to think, what the fuck? Cole. And then my 5th one would have to be, I said Jay, Kanye. Who was it said? Drake?
Tyler.
And I said Cole. Okay, and then 5th would be Drake. And then like Drake / Kendrick, interchangeable in terms of just like where they were when they started versus who they are now in terms of their career. Fucking nuts.
Yeah.
And you can say that about a lot of rappers, but just Drake and Kendrick specifically, where it's like, where you can go to their first few rap songs when they were like 17, 18 and just listen to them. I'm like, wow, you've gotten so much better.
You could tell the difference. Yeah, there's certain guys that you're like, okay, you've improved, but they've had just a drastic like just like just
and you
on
can say
another
that about
level.
You can say that about everyone on the list now that I think about it, in terms of like Tyler at 18.
Yeah.
Jay-Z at 18, that's kind of unfair because again, he was rapping with fucking Big L and Big Daddy Kane and shit.
Facts.
And Jazzo. And it's just,
the circle he had was ridiculous. It was just like you knew
you're
he was
only
gonna
get better when you're trying to keep up with those guys.
Yeah.
And him being younger too, he definitely was trying to keep up with them. And then you just hear stories of him like rap battling fucking Busta Rhymes and shit, and like DMX and like it's just like crazy, like the amount of talent all of these people have to like muster up just to show up, just because they've set the bar that high. You know what I mean?
No, definitely.
And it's just kind of like, I guess what I was doing with the Monday shit was kind of like setting the bar as low as possible, where it's kind of like, here's what I'm doing when it's rushed. I'm starting at 0. Here's what I got to give you right now. Now, the next thing is go like, and then everything afterwards is only going to be up, which is the point in terms of, I think, most industries, but also I guess in terms of rap, you need to be willing to get better. So in my head, it was like, all right, do I want to keep trying to think I have to be as close to perfect not put anything out and then put that out and then have that be my starting point, or start with whatever I got and then work from there. I'd rather start with whatever I got, because at least then, like, the listeners, even if they're like in the lower like hundreds and shit, I think overall, I think like all of my shit hit over 1,000, which is cool, but like nothing has hit. Like one of them hit over 1,000 recently, but like that's just like with time. But like,
Yeah.
I don't got time to just be sharing this shit all day on fucking social media. Like, I'm trying
Yeah.
to actively make more of it. And it's just kind of like, there's like, what am I trying to say? Where it's like, I know I'm good and I'm trying to be better. So I'd rather give you the good now as opposed to thinking / waiting to be great. Because that's another kind of like hurdle creatives put in front of themselves, where it's kind of like, oh, this is trash, I shouldn't put this out. I'm sure you have interviews you're sitting on where you're like, oh, this wasn't that good. But it's just kind of like,
Big
yo,
facts.
and it's like, yo, somebody out there is going to like it, even if it's just like a few handful of people. Those are people who are going to hear that and be like, you know what? I like this for what it is.
Yeah.
What else do they have? Even if it's like the one person, that's one other person you got from something you thought wasn't as good. And that's what
true.
my goal was with the Mondays. And it's just kind of like, you can't look at your like catalog and be like, this isn't as good as the other thing. It shouldn't be, because it should be its own thing. Like, imagine you woke up one day and your parents are like, oh yeah, like me and your father compare you and your sister and your brother all the time. That's kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, parents are always like, oh, we don't have a favorite. And sometimes you can kind of tell who's the favorite. I don't think
definitely.
most parents have a favorite, but like, I can't tell you if I have a favorite song, but I can tell you I have a group of favorite songs that I'm gonna put on an EP, drop it next Friday on the 20th, so that you have at least a starting point. If you don't know which one to start with, or like you don't care which one you start with, boom, start with this project, listen to that, because this is where I think my bar is at its best, but still pretty low compared to what I know I'm capable of making.
I feel you.
It's kind of like not controlling the narrative, but it's just like, yo, like, why? Who am I faking for? I'm gonna just give y'all what I got now. I'm gonna come back with some heat. And that's to say, like, there's some shit that I recorded while I was making the Monday stuff, where it's like, this is shit that needs a bigger audience, and I should sit on for a
Hold
bit,
on to.
because it should not be put out yet. And like, artists do that a lot, and it's like, I didn't understand that. Like, why would you want to wait? But like, the more I kept making music, I was like, oh, some of this is hitting way better. And funnily enough, the ones that I'm sitting on, oh, weird. It's like, I guess the only way I can put it is like, have a piece of me in it, where it's like me very much not trying, me being as vulnerable as I think I have been in my raps, in terms of like, why am I rapping, or what am I rapping about, or shit about family life, or just shit like that, where it's kind of like, there are things that like I need to like learn how to better put into song, but like I need to fucking make sure I put a good amount of myself in it. And it's just like not the one throwaway line. And it's just kind of like, that came out of nowhere. Like, wow, this nigga's talking about trauma. What the fuck? He was just talking about how like just random shit before. Like, there are things in songs that make more sense outside of rap when you don't have to follow the rules of rap. And it's just kind of like, what if you wrote a rap song as if you were writing a folk song? Like shit like that I'm thinking, where it's just kind of like, it's not supposed to sound like a folk song.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, your musical mind is fucking incredible.
It's not, I mean, thank you for that.
In my opinion, maybe it's because I don't know a lot of artists like that. I know a couple though, and they don't have the mindset you do.
And that's the thing, where it's like, I've met other people who don't think like me, and that's kind of the point where it's like, you're gonna meet individuals who are very different, but like for the most part. But
there's some people that just think, okay, I'm gonna make a verse, and okay, I'm a rapper now.
Or like, what this about? And it's just kind of like, my brain can't think in terms of just like a very simple black and white. Everything is like a spectrum to me. So like, what is this album gonna sound like? What is the emotion ride? And it's like, is it gonna be a narrative? And it's just like, I have more of those ideas close to my chest, but I'm not trying to put it all out there, especially considering like it's not done. Yeah. And that's another thing I fucking hate when artists do, like, finish your shit before you put it out, or like before you even start to promote it. Like, there's no point in telling me you're working on something and then you can't put it out.
Yeah,
because it's like, I'm telling you now that like, this is what it's going to sound like, because this is what it sounds like right now as I'm making it. And who's to say shit won't change? But for the most part, this is the project that I'm working on. And I'll connect with you then when it's time to like talk about that one, because that one is going to be pretty fucking good. Like anything that I've been making, like not even to be like cocky, but like I'm a humble individual, but like I know that.
No,
like,
yeah, that's
I
a fact.
know
That's a
do,
fact.
You know what I mean? And it's just kind of like, yo, like this is that moment, especially like in hip hop, where like given like rappers are usually given like that wiggle room to be arrogant as fuck. You know what I mean? Like I can talk my shit because I know the shit that I'm making right now is very good and does not sound like what the other people are doing because it's what I'm doing in a vacuum. Like people see what other people do and I'm just like, oh, I want what they have in terms of success.
Yeah.
How do they get it? They made XYZ music. I'm gonna make this subgenre of hip hop. And so now you have a lot of people following trends and not setting them. And then that's why you also get the same number, or not number, you get the same name for artists doing the numbers that they do because they push the bar forward. They're like trying to push the genre forward, or I guess raise the bar, push the genre forward in terms of what is a rap song.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like my question to that is then like, all right, what do I think is a rap song, right? So yeah, and I guess, what is a rap song?
Yeah. Yo, Manny, that was a good conversation. Just straight like 2 hours of just talking to you, talk about music. And it was fucking incredible. And I loved it. And that was like the perfect way to end. Like, what is rap music? And I feel like rap music, whatever you really want it to be. If you say you're putting out rap music, it sounds nothing like rap. It might be rap. Fuck it. You know what I mean? It's all about, like we talked about before, like how people take it. But man, thank you again for being on the Street Sheet. I appreciate it. Appreciate you talking to me. We got some gems. We got you
got
dropping.
So many gems, bro.
Oh,
thank you for
of
having
course.
Me, brother.
Of course, bro. Like you said, you got the EP dropping hopefully next Friday, right? I'll make sure to repost it when it, even if it doesn't go through for Friday, I'll make sure to repost it when it does go out. I'll make sure I got that promotion for you, my guy. But yeah, thank you, and let people know where to find you.
All right. Well, you can find me on my abandoned IG page that I'm gonna come back to.
You gotta pick that back up.
Shit. I gotta pick it up, but I'm just kind of like, all right, like I get it. Like I gotta play the numbers game. I gotta get followers and shit. But like, if you're really just trying to kick it, like I'm working on a website.
Oh wow!
Stay tuned. And it's just kind of like, I think this website as of right now might just be like a placeholder for what's next, just so I can like have a place to like actively like talk to the people I'm fucking with, but also a place to like post my music. So like stay tuned for that. But for right now, on Instagram, my handle is Godbody, GODBODY _ so like the little line on the bottom, Husky HUSKY.AI. So Godbody _ Husky.AI. And then I have a Twitter, Hotep, HOTEP _ Husky. I gotta get on that shit too. I don't know if it's just, and then like Manolo Husky, MANOLO Husky HUSKY on Facebook too. I'm on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm on pretty much every
music platform right now.
And fuck it, like artists too, hit me up if you hear this episode. Like I always hit people up, especially if you want to do shit together. Like I always love just meeting people randomly on like Reddit and shit. So like in Discord and shit, I be in Discord and shit. But like definitely hit me up, find me online, just Godbody _ Husky.ai is my Reddit name too if you want to hit me up there. But like for the most part, like just look out for my shit next Friday, Manolo Husky EP. And again, stay tuned for part 3.
Facts. Coming soon. Coming soon.
We should do it every
year. Like every year. Like just a re-up. What's going on this year, man?
Oh, that'd be fire. Actually, that'd be fucking. That'd be
To
crazy.
be honest, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah,
it's the plan, man.
July? Yeah.
Yo, my guy, bro. Thank you again for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. It was always great talking to you. Street Sheet, baby. You know the vibes. Go subscribe. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Give us a rating, comment. You know, do whatever the fuck you gotta do to support the page, support the podcast. I love everybody that does show support. Be DMing me. I love the feedback, whether it's good or bad. So just say what's up. This is another episode of the Street Sheet, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.